Hi everyone, it is me, Sarah URANUS, Sailor Sky World Amara, right now making a film outside. We haven't made one outside in some time. As you can see, our dogs are out with us. You can see there's Mimi, and there's Buttercup over there. Now, today's film, I guess, would be more of a follow-up film to the earlier film that Sailor Pluto or Sailor Underworld Trista made. Only this time we're going to talk about Shintoism, the other worship that is shown in Sailor Moon and most likely shown in Sailor Moon a lot more times. Now, a lot of folks are going to say that Shintoism, the worship, was offshooted into Sailor Moon because Naoko Takaguchi spent some time working in that worship house as a Shintoist, as a hireling of the worship house at one time. She thought it would be cool, but then not so much. But then offshooted it in when she came up with RAYE Hino. Now, the worship, or the Shintoist worship, plays up in more than one way. A lot of folks are always seen coming to the worship house on Cherry Hill or Red Hill, being the street name, not the name of the worship house. And most of the time they're wishing for good luck. Most of the time, they come for wedlock because as Ray's grandfather does oversee a lot of those things and says he can do the wedlock fee for their wedlock deal cheaper than other worship houses would do it for. As we also know that a lot of folks do happen to drive there. Some of them happen to walk there. Some of them take a lorry if they don't have any, if that's the only way of other getting there. And the first time the worship house comes up is when Jedi is taking, kidnapping folks who are getting on the lorry to go home, folks who are driving home from the worship house in their wains and lorries. And Ray tends to spend a lot of time in looking at the Great Fire, which sometimes gives her insight on goings on, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And it's mostly owned by Ray's grandfather. Ray also runs it as well. When Chad came along later on, he also worked as a hireling later on there as well. It also becomes their meeting stead. In the drawing film, in the newer drawing show, in the drawing books, it was always it was the setup middle, which was underneath the game middle. But in the first drawing show, it was a Shinto worship house where they met. It comes up a lot, a lot of things happened there. When Zoisite went after Gray's grandfather, who happened to have been born with a rainbow hearse in him, but unknown to him, he was unaware of it and spent his whole life not knowing that he had a rainbow hearse in him until Zoisite came after him one evening. And it wasn't until the next day or the next evening or night that she ended up taking the rainbow hearse from him, and the fiend took over him. The fiend was inside the rainbow hearse, not inside of him. After God and Jesus working through Sailor Moon cast the fiend out that Lucifer had take over him, he mostly went back to his behaving his self. Ray's grandfather sometimes is known to want to be friendly with everyone. He likes to play games with folks, and some folks get irked over it. And Deke, they play it off as Gray's grandfather wanting to be really friendly with everyone, wanting everyone to like him, and sometimes likes to play stunts on folks or just be, play around, and then folks get irked with him when he's doing or saying something to them they might not like. He doesn't mean harm by any means. His heart's in a good stead, but he sometimes comes off of irking folks who don't want to be, laughed, played with, or I don't know, laughing with, and, you know. Now, other things we might also have to wonder about the worship house is that there are many times where fun stalks are going on and they got to sell good luck stones to help keep the worship house going. Ray's grandfather also seems to, in the Viz world, he was guilty of going after women and saying and doing things that would put shame upon the Hindukin, the Hinokin. And Deke, he's always seen going around wanting to hire, you know, full-time workers or half-time workers under the belief that Ray doesn't like doing her work around the worship house, and he believes by having other folks that would take the work off of him. Chad, who is a full-time hireling, who does some of the work, who handles the work at the worship house. And there were times Ray's grandfather wanted to open up a learn hall to teach women how to fight. And Chad was the teacher, and well, Ray's grandfather, I guess, was the overseer of it, the one who would, you know. And this shift out to be what the Dark King, the Black Moon Ken. Also, Katsy went after this at one time with a wrestler fiend. Don't forget, there was also the same worship house where Katsy became good. The same one where Katsy and Birdie were taken by their sisters Avery and Charisma until they became good. And a lot of things do tend to happen at Ray's worship house. A lot of times it plays up a lot. You know? Now, Shintoism, if my understanding of this worship is right or not, is worshiping of the earth and beings, and that life is in everything, you know, and trees and you know, in the world. And that would be true because God made the world, so that would be true. They call it God's way. Now, a lot of folks want to know if what Ray's worship was. Well, she was a Shintoist, I believe, but she went to a Christendom Learn hall. Christendom Learn. You know, not the same one that Serena and Amy and Ray and Lita were going to, and not the same one Mina was going to at the time, but some other one. I think it was called TA, Learn for Girls. The dogs are still out here right now. Also, another thing is that Ray, is worshipful. And she does end up worshiping God and Jesus, even though she's a Shintoist. So we don't know what their take on God and Jesus is. Do they believe in God and Jesus? I would think some do, some don't. So, and a lot of folks do come to the worship house to ask for help. Some ask for blessings, others buy good luck stones, which sometimes work, sometimes don't work. Ray's grandfather and Ray herself also give worship help to folks who need it. And Ray does tend to have more than one dream. Her dream is to be a songstress, to be a sitter, to be a show player, and a businesswoman. She doesn't really know how to fit all of these in, Now, the worship house prolongs into the first 2 different, 3 different, 4 followings of Sailor Moon. By the 5th following, it's no longer around anymore, except during the Queen Helena arm of it. Yeah, but after that, they really don't go there that much anymore. And one time, and a lot of folks want to know, all right, Buttercup. Good dog, good girl. Shit. Well, before I end this film, a lot of folks want to wonder, what Ray's grandfather or what Ray might think about some other warships. Well, in that one, when Nephrite had the spider fiend that took over Serena's, craft teacher at the time, which was, Helen Felbert, I believe. And when Ray wanted, this is coming from Viz, because in Deke she was taking drapes and she wanted to make a wedding wear out of it. And Ray's grandfather didn't want her to do anything with it because it was meant too much. And Viz, he didn't want her to do that because he thought she making a wedding wear for that stretch for that worship house was unholy, and thought it was, they shouldn't do that. Now, at the end of the day, before I end this film, some folks out there might wonder if I know more about Shintoism, but that's just getting my guess on it. So let me know what you think about Shintoism, the worship. Are any of you folks who are my followers are Shinto followers or not? Well, Sarah URANUS, Sailor Sky Rotamara. See you later.